Hello and welcome to the programme which looks at the Holy Land. I am Paul Calvert. 1 Kings 10 verse 1 from the New King James Bible says this: Now when the Queen of Sheba heard all of the fame of Solomon concerning the name of the Lord, she came to test him with hard questions. I'm with Monica Ruby from Christian Friends of Israel, and we're talking up the project Hope for the Future. Monica, what is Hope for the Future?
Hi, so Hope for the Future is a project that's geared toward the Ethiopian community. It was started many years ago by Sharon and Ray Sanders. They were, I believe, living near one of the absorption centers when the first waves of Ethiopians were being brought over, and they started to see some needs for that community and decided that they would reach out to that community and do what they could to help.
So the project has a rich history.
Yes, as far as I understand. I haven't been here very long, but yes, the project has been here much longer than I, at least 30 years, I believe, as part of CFI.
Wow. So what does Hope for the Future do?
We actually do quite a number of things. We've had a lot of involvement in B'nai Brak. There's a youth center there run by a wonderful woman, Raquel Mangoli, and so we have helped with different sponsorships, contributing financially, providing food vouchers, especially around the holidays, the feast days, for the families there. We went and painted her youth center, and that was back in the spring. So there have been a lot of different things with her project specifically. We've had interactions with people down in Kiryat Gat. I visited there myself recently and met with one of the community leaders. He had a couple of ladies that he's hoping that we can help out financially, a couple of single mothers that could use some assistance. One doesn't have enough beds for all of her children, so things like that. We used to have a large clothing distribution center here. It's much smaller now, but people can still come and get clothing. Of course, New Olim can come and get household goods, things like that. We're also now starting to work with a congregation that's in the Talpiot area. We've just started tutoring English. We're hoping to be able to tutor math as well, possibly computer skills, and we've had some women there express interest in learning to sew, and we had some sewing machines donated to the project. So we're hoping to be able to start sewing classes there, hopefully within the next couple of weeks, actually. That project also, they're asking for a sound studio to be put into their congregation, and so we're looking to help with that, and then also branch into more youth activities there as well. So I'm envisioning for that project a place that young people can come, like after school or early evenings, and maybe play, board games or air hockey, maybe a pool table, things like that. Just some place that they can be together and not be on the streets, not be getting in trouble, that sort of thing, as well as the tutoring in English and math and computer skills, even if they want.
When you think of Ethiopia, you think of a very poor community. Are the Ethiopians that have came into Israel, are they still a poor community?
That's a little complex. Some, yes, very much so. And yet my contact person at this congregation in Talpiot, she's an attorney. And so you have some that came over very, very poor, very, very uneducated. And for, I think, some of the older adults, it's been harder to move out of that. They came from a very agrarian lifestyle, and now they're here having to adapt to modern life in a very technological society. And so for a lot of the older people, it has been harder to adapt to that. For the young kids who are able to come in and get into school, I believe it's much easier for them. But there has also been some racial discrimination that the community has faced, and that's been difficult.
Yeah, that must be really hard, battling racism here in the country.
Yes, it is, especially, for a group of people who they've been longing to return home to Israel, and then they come here and everything is so new and so different, and they don't fit in because they look different, because their skin is a different color. So yeah, there have been some struggles, definitely. And then because of the cultural differences, a lot of people have had trouble adapting, and so there have been a lot of broken marriages as a result. Some men, being unable to find work, have even returned to Ethiopia, but the families have stayed here, and so that's been difficult. Some of the difficulties they've told me they've seen is a rise in divorce rates, children acting out more than they would have back in their home in Ethiopia. Just even the structure between husband and wife being very different here. There, it's very traditional. The man is the head of the household. Here, if the man can't find work, the woman goes out to work. Now she becomes the head of the household, and it's just put things out of balance for many of them.
So there's a lot of need for ministry here and to minister into all these different problems and complexities.
Absolutely. And so this congregation in Talpiot, one of the other things they've asked for is different workshops, parenting skills, relationship communication. They even did a relationship conference a few weeks ago, and we were able to have a small part in that. We're talking about anger management groups and workshops. My background is counseling and social work, so that's just going to be a really nice fit for me if I can help provide some of those things, even financial planning, so that those who are struggling financially can get a better grip, not get into so much debt, because that's been another issue as well. Something happens, they get into debt, which leads to more debt, which leads to more debt, and they have trouble digging themselves out of that. And so if we can help with some financial planning and budgeting and things like that, hopefully that can help to alleviate some of the issues.
Are there many Ethiopian people here in Israel?
I forget the exact number, tens of thousands for sure, but I can't remember the exact number. I can get that for you later if you'd like.
Do you see this as a fulfillment of biblical prophecy? All these Ethiopians coming into the land, because the Bible says, I will bring them from the north and the south and the east and the west. And of course, south is Ethiopia. So do you see this as a fulfillment of biblical prophecy, the Ethiopians coming to the land?
Absolutely, without a doubt, and being brought on eagle's wings. I mean, these people, many of them, they'd never seen an airplane, they didn't know what it was, but here they were, brought back over from their homeland, flying here. So absolutely a fulfillment of biblical prophecy. Just, all of Israel being regathered and brought back home. Absolutely.
It must be exciting work working with them.
It really is. It really is. I haven't been here very long, so I'm just getting started, but the people have just been really warm and friendly, very open, just really a nice group of people overall from what I've seen, definitely.
When did you come here into the land, and why did you come?
I've been here since April. I was first here in Israel back in 2007. I was doing full-time ministry service work with a different organization and had an opportunity to come to Israel and thought, great, what will I do there? And that's how I found out about CFI and volunteered with CFI very short term back in 2007. I was just here 4 months and did Ulpan, which I've forgotten all the Hebrew I knew at that time. And then my husband, he had been here in Israel back in, I believe 1988 for 6 months volunteering on a kibbutz. Well, we met when I returned from Israel that first time, and so we both had a love for Israel. We've both been wanting to get back. We were back briefly in 2013, hoped we could stay long term. That didn't turn out. And then this past October, we were going a completely different direction, and October 7th happened. And we felt like, okay, it's time. We need to get back to the land and do whatever we can to help and bless the people.
Of course, October the 7th meant war happened. So was it scary coming to Israel during a time of war?
Not necessarily. We have felt called to Israel for a long time. And I mean, even when I was here back in 2007, there had been like bus bombings prior to that. So, I mean, we knew there would be some risk, but we just trusted the Father that He would keep us safe if this was where He wanted us. And He opened the doors for us to be able to come, with visas and finances and everything else. And we really believed it was the right thing to do, and it has definitely worked out.
Has it been a challenge being here during this time, and particularly working with the Ethiopian community?
Not particularly, no. Being in Jerusalem, it's definitely been a lot safer, I feel, than a lot of the other places. I think we've been into the bomb shelter once. There have been alarms go off 2 other times, and they quit before we even made it to the shelter. So that part hasn't been difficult. As far as the Ethiopian people, again, just the difficulties are because of the suffering and challenges that they can face individually. And so that's hard, knowing that you're working with a group of people who can struggle so much. But again, my background is in social work, so I'm accustomed to that.
When Ethiopians come here into the land, do they bring a lot of their culture with them, which makes Israel a much richer place and diverse place?
Absolutely. I have not seen it yet, but I understand there's a very beautiful coffee ceremony that they have, and I've not yet had the pleasure of being a part of one of those. You can see the Ethiopian women on the streets and the way they dress. Usually it's a long white dress with something very colorful. So they definitely bring their culture with them, absolutely. And then the downside of that is some of them haven't necessarily enculturated very well. But like you pointed out, that brings diversity, and I think that's a great thing.
Also as well, in the church, is their praise and worship very, very different than what we would be used to in the West?
I have not yet been to one of their services, but I've seen little glimpses, and yes, absolutely. And actually I did participate a little bit in the worship service at the relationship conference a couple weeks ago. Very lively, but as far as one of their actual church or synagogue services, I haven't attended one yet. I'm looking forward to that, though.
Are you seeing God do a great work within the Ethiopian community?
I believe so. Again, it's been a difficult adjustment for them. But yes, things are changing, things are improving. The younger generations, of course, have learned Hebrew, and so that's just going to open all sorts of doors for them, all sorts of opportunities. So yes, I think things are getting better, definitely.
Has it been difficult for older people to come to the land and fit in with all the different language and things? Of course, the younger generation, if you're brought up in it, it's easy to assimilate. But has it been difficult for some of the older?
Yes, definitely. That's where more of the problems lie. As I mentioned, they came from an agrarian society, most of them, so didn't have skills that they could bring over to get work. It's been harder maybe to learn the language, so they still speak Amharic. Most of the ones I've met, they at least speak some Hebrew. But like I'll go to a home visit and they'll be speaking Amharic and Hebrew. They may even have a couple of English words thrown in. But so yeah, it's been more difficult for the older people because it's a whole lot of changes, a whole lot of things to adapt to.
Is Christian Friends of Israel making a difference in the Ethiopian community?
I believe so. Our project was really strong at one point, and then the last person to direct this particular project, Hope for the Future, she left 2 years ago, and so this project has been basically dormant for the past 2 years. And then I arrived in April, and I'm just really getting my feet wet, getting in there, trying to reestablish connections and relationships and ties. But I believe it had made a positive impact in the past, and I'm looking forward to seeing us make a positive impact moving forward.
Has it given you a heart and a love for the Ethiopian people?
Oh, definitely, definitely. I was actually first introduced to just the idea of Ethiopia and Ethiopian people many, many years ago when I was in community college. I had taken an alternate kind of history course. I was tired of the same old history we get, in the States in the elementary school and high school, and I had an opportunity to take, what was it called, a Black History course, and the teacher would bring in different guest speakers, and one of our recurring speakers was a young man from Ethiopia. So I started learning about the culture. This was back in the early 80s. And so I was just really fascinated by the culture at that time. And, I've heard different things in the news, of course, about the Ethiopian people and being brought over here to Israel and things like that. And so when the opportunity came up for me to come and take on this project, it was really exciting for me. And so I'm really glad to be here, glad to be able to do this, glad to be able to reach out and make connections and just try to be a blessing to the people in that community.
Of course, we have glimpses of Ethiopia in the Bible with the Queen of Sheba coming to see Solomon and the Ethiopian eunuch as well. So there is biblical stuff there, isn't there?
Definitely, definitely. And they are very proud of their ties to that. If you talk to them, they will talk about, the Queen of Sheba and things like that. And so they feel very strongly connected to the land and are happy to be back here.
What is your prayer for the Ethiopian community today?
That they would just continue to be blessed, that they would be accepted by the greater Israeli community, Israeli society, that their skin color would not be a hindrance, that they could be embraced because of their diversity and not kept out or separated because of their diversity, that they could just continue to grow and to adapt and to enjoy life here.
Well, Monica, thank you very much for sharing today.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. Pray that God will move by his mighty power in the Holy Land and bring his peace.